All right, welcome everybody listening from all around the world, all around this beautiful blue-green planet we call Gaia. Welcome everybody here listening here in Australia, this beautiful country of ours. Welcome to the Mystic Drop, where each week we try and journey down the road less traveled by, as the great Robert Frost once poetically put. I'm your host, Roberto Roya. Joining me today is Ned. Ned is from the Black Box online radio show and podcast on YouTube. His show focuses on trying to dig out the truth and his own hypothesis on true crime stories with a main focus on the mystery of the Zodiac Killer, presenting facts, research, and in-depth analysis of the history of the Zodiac. I'd like to give a very, very warm welcome to you, Ned. How you going?
I'm doing well, Roberto. Thank you for having me.
No, my absolute pleasure. Now, seeing that you're a first-time guest on this show, we've got a first-time guest incantation that I'd like to share with you. So it goes like this.
Okay.
We are two cosmic spiritual beings sitting around the campfire. Two drops of light from the Great Spirit. Truth is our path, and wisdom is our teacher. We start with a salute. And now let our magic flow. All right. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today, Ned.
Okay, sure.
I'd like to start with how did you first get interested in true crime and especially with the Zodiac case?
With true crime, I came by it like as a lifelong encounter. I grew up watching America's Most Wanted and the show Cops in America. America's Most Wanted was more about unsolved crimes. Cops was about the activities of police officers when they're trying to arrest people. And it was just on Saturday nights. And I came from a divorced family in America. We have a 50% divorce rate. So I would spend Saturday nights with my father. And I would just be sitting around with nothing to do in a different town. And I ended up watching Cops and America's Most Wanted for years. That's how I first learned about the Zodiac Killer on America's Most Wanted. And I found that I went through several different true crime phases in my life. In my early 20s, I had a very big serial killer phase where I was just watching serial killer documentaries all the time, trying to become familiar with maybe the more famous ones in the United States of America: John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, the names that most people would think about as a serial killer. And then in my mid-20s, I got a little bit more into those countdown sites. Do you ever watch those, like Dark 5, All Time 10s?
No, I haven't heard of those, no.
Well, they're very general. They just tell you, okay, top 5 unsolved mysteries. And okay, I did that for a while.
Yeah.
When I was in my late 20s, I started following the show Brain Scratch, which is hosted by John Lorden. He runs the Lorden Arts channel on YouTube. He's been a very big influence on me as a true crime presenter.
Yeah.
And that was more about really trying to learn the facts of the case. He said he started that show because a lot of people were just coming up with these really wild theories, and they're trying to connect the true crime cases immediately to the supernatural, immediately to UFOs. And he wanted to go through the source documents, like the police reports, autopsies, looking at the primary source documents and trying to find out, well, what's really going on? Why doesn't somebody report on these things in a more fact-based manner as opposed to going to the supernatural? And he has a couple episodes out on the Zodiac Killer, but I went through a Zodiac phase, I think, when I was about 23. With the Zodiac Killer specifically, I was just listening to the radio, and I heard an interview with a gentleman named Lyndon Lafferty. And he is the author of the book, The Zodiac Killer Cover-Up, also known as The Silenced Badge. And I was just listening to what he said, and he talked about how the police have known the identity of the Zodiac Killer for decades, but they choose not to arrest him. And I'm like, what? Wow. The Zodiac Killer that I've seen on America's Most Wanted? And I was like, well, I want to find out if that's true or not.
Yeah.
So I got on all the sites, ZodiacKiller.com, Zodiac Killer Facts, ZodiacKillersite.com, and I began reading up on the Zodiac a lot in 2011. Yeah. And I began to get my own ideas, right? I began to start thinking about the case in my own way. And I knew I wanted to do something with it, like, I don't know, write a blog, maybe do some like essays or something. I didn't even know about podcasting at the time. And I started Black Box Online Radio in 2017, mostly to talk about the CIA, um, like stuff like the FBI and the NSA, and these governmental organizations that are kind of connected to the government, but also to the elite circles, and of course, things like the New World Order. But I just decided to put out my ideas about the Zodiac Killer onto that show, Black Box Online Radio. I never thought of a regular segment. I thought I was just going to do 5 or 6. Began to resonate with some of the things that I was saying, and then they're also like requesting stuff. Hey, could you do a video on this suspect? I really like what you said about this suspect. Could you talk about this?
Yeah.
And of course I did. I wanted to agree, and I've been doing that since 2017. Black Box Online Radio has just passed the 1,000th episode.
Congratulations on that.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you deserve it as well. I've been following for a bit now, and you do an amazing job on there. For the people that don't know, can you give a brief history about who the Zodiac was, the Zodiac case, and what's it all about?
Absolutely. So the first confirmed Zodiac crime occurred on December 20th of 1968 with the Lake Herman Road murders. We saw the murders of David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen. David Faraday was 17 years old. Betty Lou Jensen was 16 years old. And they were murdered in a parking lot off of a back road in Northern California. And for 7 months, nobody really knew what to make of it. I mean, was this going to be a serial killer? Was this going to be just a homicidal maniac who killed 2 people just one time? But then, in the summer of 1969, specifically on July 4th of 1969, the Zodiac Killer struck again, this time murdering Darlene Ferrin and shooting Mike Michaud, but Mike Michaud went on to survive. Then the Zodiac wrote in a letter taking credit for both sets of murders. He wrote a letter saying something to the effect of, I am the murderer of the 2 teenagers at Lake Herman and the girl on the 4th of July. He then went on to put out other things like the 408 cipher came out. That was the one that said, I like killing people because it's so much fun. It's more fun than hunting wild game in the forest. And on September 27th of 1969, the Zodiac Killer did something very different. He put on a black costume with a big hood that had kind of a rectangular top, and he went to Lake Berryessa in Napa County, California, and he attacked 2 people, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Ann Shepard. Cecilia Shepard passed away from injuries, but Brian Hartnell also survived. He's on October 11th of 1969 when the Zodiac killed a taxi driver named Paul Lee Stein in the Presidio Heights neighborhood in San Francisco. So the canonical Zodiac crimes, the confirmed crimes, happened within a 12-month time span from December 20th of 1968 until October 11th of 1969.
Right. I think that's fascinating history right there. What, in your opinion, what is it about the case that has lasted the test of time? Like it's over 50 years ago that this all happened. What is it that captures the imagination and the mystery within people?
I think there are a couple reasons why people are so captivated by the Zodiac Killer. The first is they're not only a set of murders, but there's also these pieces of writing that came in. I mentioned one letter that talked about I am the murderer of the girl on the 4th of July and the kids at Lake Herman. I also talked about the cipher, which is a cryptogram. It's a puzzle. It has like all these symbols in it, and you have to work to try and decode it. The 408 cipher has been decoded. The 340 cipher was recently decoded just less than a year ago, actually. The one that says that wasn't me on the TV, which brings up a point about me. I'm not afraid of the gas chamber.
Yeah.
So there are different things that you can kind of try and unravel. And you can also view it as a problem-solving activity, a game of mental chess. But I think it's also because there are only 4 confirmed Zodiac crimes: Lake Herman Road, Blue Rock Springs, Lake Berryessa, and then Presidio Heights.
Yep.
So most people can remember that. They can remember the victims. They can remember the days that these crimes happened. So it's like a murder mystery, but it's very, very condensed.
Yep.
Like Jack the Ripper as well. The Ripper crimes that were committed in Whitechapel in 1888
Yep.
are also within a very short amount of time.
Yeah. And a lot of people have, found links between the two cases and like to compare them,
Absolutely.
What are your takes on that, the comparison between the two cases?
Oh, to be honest, dude, the Zodiac Killer is a cheap 20th century Jack the Ripper knockoff. I mean, most of what the Zodiac did, Jack the Ripper also did. Jack the Ripper also wrote in letters. Jack the Ripper also only had like is it 4 nights of activity, but I think 5 canonical crimes with the Ripper. And we are going to be approaching some anniversaries of that stuff very soon. But a big difference is Jack the Ripper mutilated the victims, whoever did it. I hope to do some episodes on that in the future and even become more familiar with that stuff. But because there are many alternative theories. But the Zodiac Killer did not mutilate the victims. The Zodiac did not even really move the victims' bodies. There's one exception. On October 11th, 1969, the taxi driver Paul Stein was murdered. And the Zodiac is kind of moving his body in the taxi cab a little bit. He cuts off a piece of Paul Stein's shirt. The only time he did that.
Mm.
Other than that, the Zodiac is definitely not mutilating anyone, definitely not cutting out somebody's kidney the way that Jack the Ripper did to Catherine Eddowes. So Jack the Ripper is definitely more physical. The Zodiac comes across as cold, methodical, calculating, thoughtful, and trying to prove that he is smarter than everyone. And so far, he's never been captured.
Yeah, that's right. There's so many theories out there, which we'll get to later in the show. But do you think that, just going back to Jack the Ripper, do you think whoever the Zodiac was inspired by Jack the Ripper?
Absolutely, 100% yes. I think the Zodiac Killer studied at least 3 major true crime cases, or he had knowledge, familiarity. I mean, when I say studied, he knew about them and they were inspiration for the creation of the Zodiac Killer persona in 1968, 69, and so on. The 3 are Jack the Ripper, the Texarkana Moonlight murders from 1946, and the third is the murder of Sherry Jo Bates that occurred on October 30th of 1966. Now, after Sherry Jo Bates was murdered, 4 letters were mailed in. One is called the Riverside Confession. It was typed on a typewriter. It says Miss Bates went to the slaughter like a lamb, and he was tampering with her car. He removed the distributor. That was written with a typewriter. We don't know who wrote that letter. Recently, though, those letters that I said, that the 3 others, they said Bates had to die, there will be more, and they're signed with a letter Z. I think the person who became the Zodiac Killer knew about that. He had maybe followed the news coverage, but the letter writer for those 3 letters that say Bates had to die, there will be more, signed with a Z, they've identified the letter writer. It was a prankster, a hoax, joke as a teenager. We've checked him out. The authorities issued a press release this year saying they don't think he's the murderer of Sherry Jo Bates. But I think the Zodiac studied those 3 cases, the Phantom Killer, who's also known as the Texarkana Moonlight murderer, Jack the Ripper, and Sherry Jo Bates.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. So that was his inspirations to do what he did.
Yeah, I do think so. Like committing a series of crimes, writing in letters, taking credit for it. Because it's not only about the murders, it's also about bragging about it, about telling the world, look here, I'm a serial killer, and I'm also smarter than you because, number 1, you won't catch me. Number 2, I'm going to give you all of these clues. You have my handwriting. You have my cryptograms that may reveal my identity. It's just giving all of these taunts and teases and never getting caught. So
such a fascinating story. If I know, like, listening to your show, you're very passionate about this subject, and I know that you've thought a lot about it. I'd like to ask you, if you had the opportunity to sit across whoever the Zodiac was, what would you say to him or that person? Because it could be, who knows? It
Wow,
could
no
be
one's
a,
ever
it could
asked
be
me
a
that
woman,
before.
but I don't think so.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Mostly I would want to know why. I would just be like, I mean, it sounds like you're asking me. We know who the Zodiac Killer is, maybe already been apprehended,
Yeah.
and I have a chance to interview the serial killer.
Yeah.
I would say,
If you got it, if you had the
why?
opportunity
What
to
made you do it?
have him on your show or something, what would you like to say to him?
First of all, I would call him a murderous scumbag, an absolute piece of garbage. And I really felt that reading the new book that came out, Zodiac Killer, Just the Facts, which is a compilation of the police reports, because you just read these reports of someone who lost their daughter, lost their son, lost their brother, lost their sister. The families are giving their impact statements. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. The Zodiac Killer is a fascinating mystery, but
Yeah.
the person responsible for those murders was an evil, evil person
Yeah.
who did some very heinous and deranged things. And that's what I would be like, why? What motivated you to commit these crimes? Are you just some like sexually frustrated individual who didn't get love from your mommy and daddy, so you took it out on society? Um, I definitely would approach it that way
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
No. Sorry, you go. You go.
No, that's my answer to that. I would definitely want to know more about the motivations. Oh, but here's something else.
Yeah.
I would, though, in my own curiosity, want solutions to the Z13 and the Z32 ciphers
Right.
because there are four confirmed ciphers that the Zodiac Killer mailed in. First is the 408 that came in the summer of 1969. The 340 came in the fall of 1969 after the Stein murder. And the two ciphers that have not been uncoded are the Z13, also known as the My Name Is cipher. It has 13 symbols, and the Z32 cipher, which has 32, of course. What do they mean? Yeah, I would want to know about that. But I'm curious about the stuff, even though I think that it's an absolutely savage and selfish thing to do to commit these crimes. I'm still quite curious how the killer was thinking.
Yeah, that's right. To get into the mind and psychology of it would be a fascinating thing to watch.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think you'd do an awesome interview with him if you had that opportunity. I listened to your interview with Joe from the Zodiac Killer Insight series not long ago,
Sure.
and I feel like he's done some amazing work as well, like breaking down the codes and the letters and everything got to do with the Zodiac. What is your thoughts on his suspect?
On Gareth Penn.
Gareth Penn, yeah.
Okay, first, Joe believes that the Zodiac Killer was a guy named Gareth Penn, who has had a couple different jobs. If you look him up on Wikipedia, it might say that he's a German linguist, and it also might say that he spent a lot of his career as a librarian. And I think he did something like had a nautical type job for a while.
Yeah.
All right, now Joe and I are going to have some disagreement about this. I absolutely do not believe that Gareth Penn was the Zodiac Killer for maybe two, three, maybe four reasons.
Right.
The first is I think that he doesn't have the body type for it. I think Gareth Penn was way too thin to be the Zodiac Killer.
Right.
But also, Gareth Penn, he gets included with at least three other unconfirmed Zodiac crimes. I said the Zodiac was responsible for a string of murders in 1968 and 69. Joe has also tried to connect Gareth Penn to the 1966 murder of Sherry Jo Bates, the 1967 murder of Nikki Benedict, and the 1981 murder of Joan Webster. He's fairly confident about the Bates murder and the Benedict murder, which occurred in Poway, California. And he has never been too strong of a believer in the Webster murder,
Yeah.
which occurred on November 28th of 1981 in Massachusetts. I mean, firstly, I don't believe the Zodiac Killer operated in Massachusetts. I've interviewed Eve Carson extensively, who has a book out on the subject. She was the sister-in-law of Joan Webster, and she absolutely rejects the Zodiac connection as I do.
Yeah.
But I think that Joe relies a little bit too much on the numbers aspect of it. For example, between the murder of Sherry Jo Bates and the murder of Nikki Benedict, there are 184 days from, October 30th, 1966 to May 1st, 1967, 184 days. And Gareth Penn, like if you include his middle name, Gareth Sewell Penn, and you use the alphanumeric value. G is counted as 7, A counts as 1, R counts as 18, and you add all those up, GARETH, Gareth Pen, you get 184. I do not like this type of thinking because there are too many possibilities. It's not certifiable. I can't bring that into a court of law. I can't just like show the judge, hey, look, this adds up to 184. He's the Zodiac killer. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely not persuaded by that. I also do not believe that the Zodiac killer murdered Sherry Jo Bates because I think that that is a crime that had too much aggression. As I said, I think the Zodiac is cold, methodical, calculating, not the kind of person who's going to approach a girl by her car, maybe lure her down an alleyway and stab her numerous times in a vicious way.
Yeah.
Sherry Jo Bates was murdered on October 30th, the day before Halloween. It's dark, it's out at night, she's attacked by a guy. She's clawing at him, scraping his skin, pulling off his watch, pulling out clumps of his hair.
Yeah.
None of that was Zodiac crimes. The Zodiac crimes were non-confrontational.
Right.
There's no altercation going down.
Yeah.
Very similarly with the murder of Nikki Benedict. She was a girl who was walking home one day, May 1st, 1967, and she was blindsided by somebody on a dirt path in Poway, California.
Yeah.
The Zodiac didn't tend to go after people in that way. The Zodiac would approach people by their cars. The Zodiac would approach people who were stationed in a different place, not walking home in that exact manner. So that's another strike against a Nikki Benedict connection. I mean, that's just my 2 cents on the subject. These are unsolved cases.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm having Joe on the show hopefully in the next month or so. So I like to hear his take on everything, and yeah, it's interesting, and it's this whole case is like a huge jigsaw puzzle. You know, we're trying to take a piece here, take a piece there, and put it all together to solve the mystery.
Oh yes, but like what a lot of people like to do is they like to attribute crimes to the Zodiac killer that are unconfirmed. The unconfirmed list is enormous. The confirmed Zodiac murder victims, there are 5 of them that we've already listed off. David Faraday, Betty Lou Jensen, Darlene Ferrin, Paul Stein, and Cecilia Ann Shepard, not in that exact order, but there are 5 confirmed victims by the Zodiac killer. And all of these other crimes, the murder of Nikki Benedict, the murder of Joan Webster, the murder of Sherry Jo Bates, the Domingos Edwards murders in 1963, they're all unconfirmed.
Yeah.
The authorities have never officially linked the Zodiac killer to them.
Going back to what you were saying before about you know, the description of the Zodiac, I heard somewhere, I'm not sure, maybe it was on your podcast, that some people believe that he used to disguise himself and add layers upon himself to make him look different, and different sizes in shoes and stuff like that. Can you comment on that?
Oh, absolutely, I can. I would turn it right back to you and say, can you name one example when it is confirmed that the Zodiac altered his body type using clothes?
Like I heard that he, like especially with the Lake Berryessa, there was the shoe print, I think it was, and yeah, some people have said that he added like a bigger shoe, or I think it was a smaller shoe or something like that. That I heard.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yes. Robert Graysmith even talked about that in his Zodiac books when he said that he theorized that the Zodiac cut off the soles of different shoes, maybe like Walker boot prints, and then glued them on. That is guesswork. We don't have any certainty of that. I mean, it's not an established fact. And I can also share some of this. This is a little precursor of some new stuff that's coming out on Black Box Online Radio.
Oh, yeah, sweet.
Robert Graysmith had a suspect named Arthur Lee Allen, the most famous Zodiac killer suspect. He is the prime suspect of the authorities, too. Arthur Lee Allen wore a different type of shoe than what was found at Lake Berryessa. At Lake Berryessa, they recovered footprints from 10.5-inch wing walker boots, wing walkers, like from the Air Force, the kind of the kind of shoe that someone would use when they're walking on the wings of an airplane, wing walkers. Arthur Lee Allen almost always wore sneakers or tennis shoes. He had bad feet. He had gout in his feet. And his former friend, Don Cheney, even talks about this very openly. well, he talked about it. Don Chaney has also passed away in 2009. But so it's almost like Graysmith is always trying to fudge the facts to make Arthur Lee Allen fit. His book
Yeah.
Zodiac Unmasked is filled with fudge. It's like saying, well, maybe the Zodiac was a little bit more moon-faced than what people actually think, because he's promoting a moon-faced suspect. Or
Right.
perhaps not only the thing about the shoes, Arthur Lee Allen was bald, the way that I am bald. And he said, well, maybe he wore a wig, and that's why we have all of these witness descriptions of somebody with hair.
Yeah.
Assumption, assumption, assumption. I do not believe that those things about the Zodiac Killer altering his body type with clothing or padding, or the Zodiac altering his shoes with putting on a different sole and gluing them on the bottom, they aren't established facts.
Right.
But Roberto, what I can tell you, the Zodiac Killer was reported to be wearing multiple layers at Lake Berryessa. I'm sure he looked bigger. In the police reports, it states that he was wearing something that was a dark blue or maybe black windbreaker jacket. And then on top of that, he put the hooded costume that had the rectangular base. People often describe it as looking like a shopping bag. It had a piece of cloth that went down kind of like this.
Yeah.
And right where this logo is on my shirt, he had a 3x3-inch circle with a cross going through it.
Yeah. The
So,
crosses.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What is your favorite movie or book adaptation on the subject?
Oh, my favorite. You mean my favorite book about the Zodiac Killer, or I can choose a
Or
movie?
movie that you tend to always go back to and watch?
Oh, well, as far as a book, this is going to be a really lousy answer to some people, or some people are going to expect it very easily. But I would say The Great Zodiac Killer Hoax of 1986 by Thomas Henry Warren, because when I started Black Box Online Radio, I was talking about a lot of different subjects, anything under the sun. I have an episode about Turkish influence on Somali terrorism and such.
Yeah.
Like anything you can imagine was on Black Box Online Radio. But then I did the episode on the Great Zodiac Killer Hoax of 1986, which turned into, I think it was a 17-part book discussion.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people started tuning in and they're like, wow, we really like what you're saying, not only about the Zodiac Killer, but about the Zodiac hoax theory. I don't endorse it myself, and maybe we'll talk about the hoax theory later on.
Yeah.
But I think that's one I talk about very frequently. I'm fascinated by it, but I'm not sure if the theories put forward in that book, The Great Zodiac Killer Hoax of 1986, are correct.
Right. Okay. So it's something that you're interested in and have been following.
It's caught my attention, you could say that.
Yeah, that's it. Do you think the case will ever be solved, and why?
Yes, I do. Because of these new developments that we've had recently, we have solved the 340 cipher. Yeah, we, like me right here. No, David Ornshak, Jarl Van Eyck, and Sam Blake solved the 340 cipher within the last 12 months. We've also identified the letter writer for the murder, for the letters following the Sherry Joe Bates murder.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to get answers in the next 5 to 10 years. Maybe not everything, but many more new discoveries will be coming, especially with DNA. They're doing lots of things with genealogical DNA, like using Ancestry.com and so on to extract the DNA of relatives. I also talk about the Long Island serial killer on my show, Black Box Online Radio. They identified a Jane Doe using the same thing, genealogical DNA websites, and they identified Jane Doe number 6 as Valerie Mack. I mean, we're getting all kinds of new discoveries in the true crime world. So I do think the case will be solved within our lifetimes.
Wow, that's fascinating. 5 to 10 years, you said. That's amazing. Going back to the genealogy, they just caught the Golden State Killer using that technology.
Yes.
D'Angelo, I think his name was. And
Joseph James D'Angelo.
Yeah, that's right, Joseph D'Angelo. Wow. So it's going to be interesting to see, how they're going to go about that with the Zodiac if they go down that path.
With the Zodiac, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because we aren't even sure if we have a single Zodiac killer, 2, 3, 4. I was discussing this with Richard Grinnell from ZodiacCiphers.com, and he said very clearly, most people who spend a lot of time looking at the Zodiac Killer mystery agree on one thing. There was a single perpetrator, and that he was also responsible for writing the letters. They just can't agree on who it was. But I mean, it's still uncertain now, and the authorities are always holding back information. Maybe they even have the answer to that question. They have like privileged information and such.
Yeah.
I'd love to know everything that they have to share.
Yeah, that'd be fascinating to know all that. The Hunt for the Zodiac documentary was a huge hit on the History Channel not long ago. What are your takes on that documentary that they put out?
Honestly, I am not a fan.
Wow.
I really don't want to say a bunch of mean, nasty things like trash talking. I absolutely do not like their research methods. I absolutely do not like the way they're approaching the subjects. It's
Yep.
almost as if like they're just kind of talking back and forth, but once again, not looking at the hard evidence.
Yep.
And they're like, well, maybe it could be this guy, but we
Yep.
don't have the evidence that we're looking for. If we did have the evidence that we needed, well, things would be different,
Yeah.
but they're not. And
Yeah.
they just go on and on and on like that. What are their names? Sal and what's the other one? I really do not like it though.
Yeah. Well, that's why I love, like, I think it's a good introduction maybe to the subject, but then looking at your channel and the depth that you go into is just on another level, because
Oh, thank you.
yeah, because like the suspects that they had was Ross Sullivan, of course, Arthur Lee Allen, and Lawrence Kane. So they touched upon it, but going into your channel, it just goes to another level, and I'd like to congratulate you on that. Can you talk about those three subjects briefly?
Yes, of course. Is there one that you would like to talk about first?
Lawrence Kane.
Lawrence Kane, I find, is a suspect that is very difficult to prove wrong because we don't necessarily have ways that, well, I guess I should say it like this. Lawrence Kane has all of these red flags that just keep popping up. And if you put one down over here, then another problem comes up over here. And he's very difficult to eliminate. Lawrence Kane was definitely connected to some form of the criminal underworld. I would invite everybody to go over to the lawrencekane.wordpress.com, lawrencekane.wordpress.com, and read all the stuff that has been assembled by Travis Miller. He runs that site and does a great job about Lawrence Kane. Lawrence Kane most likely had a connection to organized crime through the mobster Alan Dorfman.
Right.
He may have been involved with other crimes, such as the disappearance of Donna Lass from 1970 and the murder of Dana Lull from 1974. Now, did he actually do it? All of that's unproven and unconfirmed. But with the Zodiac crimes, I think that Lawrence Kane is a little bit too small to be the Zodiac killer. I also do not think that he had the brain for it. I think that he was a criminal. He was definitely somebody who would do things that an organized criminal would do, but I don't think that he was a cold, methodical, and calculating serial killer. And in fact, I don't see anything to support the idea that he actually committed those crimes. He seems like the kind of guy that's going to get arrested for shoplifting, arrested for grand theft. Maybe he would have done something abusive toward Dana Lull or Donna Lass, but it's hard to say. But here's something else. He just keeps popping up everywhere. I'm finding all these new allegations against Lawrence Kane. The more I look into the disappearance of Donna Lass, oh yeah, he actually worked right down the hallway from her. I'm like, what? And then you can't just accept that as the truth. I was like, I'm really trying to get my hands on a directory of all the people that worked in her place of employment, which was the State Line, the Sahara Tahoe Hotel and Casino in State Line, Nevada, and then find out if that's true or not. Although he does seem a little bit nasty.
Yeah, exactly. And Ross Sullivan, what are your thoughts on him?
I think Ross Sullivan is an overrated suspect. They're really looking at him because he has facial similarities to the Zodiac Killer composite sketch, and that's about it. Ross Sullivan was definitely too large to be the Zodiac Killer, 6'2", maybe weighed 300 pounds in 1969. You read the police reports, they say that the Zodiac Killer was 5'8" or 5'10". There are notations of a perpetrator at 6 feet tall after the Lake Berryessa stabbing, but 6'2", nope. He's definitely too big. Ross Sullivan was also a schizophrenic, and I don't believe the Zodiac was a schizophrenic because the Zodiac is in control. A schizophrenic is out of control. I mean, everything is going against Sullivan. He didn't have a very strong education. I personally think the Zodiac was educated, maybe even to the graduate level. I tend to agree with Douglas Oswell, who said that he thought the Zodiac Killer had an IQ of 115. I would even go higher than that. I would say the Zodiac Killer had an IQ of 125 or more. Hey, that's just my take on the subject. Will profiling, I guess some people call it.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you. I think the IQ goes well above 120 at least. Yeah.
Sure.
The police officer who supposedly bumped into the Zodiac after, I think it was Paul Stein that was murdered.
Yeah.
Said that he got a description of the suspect. Can you talk a little bit about that and what the description was and what he saw? And the whole encounter as well.
Is your question, what do I think about the description after the Stein shooting?
Yeah, the description and your thoughts on that particular person, whoever that person was that he had that brief encounter with.
All right. Unpopular opinion. I am not 100% convinced that anybody saw the Zodiac that night that matches up to that composite sketch, or that there's that encounter, as you said, the Zodiac bumping into a police officer. There's always this doubt in the back of my mind that it was the wrong guy.
Right.
Anyone can feel free to disagree with me. I just think that people zone in too much on that with the composites because we don't have solid witness descriptions of the Zodiac Killer.
Yeah.
There were some kids that saw the Zodiac after the Stein shooting, and that's why we know that the Zodiac was kind of fumbling around with Paul Stein's body because it was witnessed by the kids. They said it even looked like he was cradling Paul Stein in his lap for a while he's stealing his wallet, he's stealing his keys.
Yeah.
They were in a house across the street, more or less, or far away.
Yeah.
Mike Mageau, the surviving victim from Blue Rock Springs, saw the Zodiac Killer for a second. He was sitting down. Brian Hartnell, the surviving victim from Lake Berryessa, saw the Zodiac with a hooded costume covering his face. So I don't believe that the witness descriptions of any Zodiac incident are very solid and that would actually generate the best type of facial composite.
Yeah, the famous the sketch of the Zodiac that everyone knows now. It's all over the internet and everything. What's the history of that, and how did that come to be?
Well, that came after the Stein shooting. As I said, the Stein shooting occurred on October 11th of 1969. The only time the Zodiac Killer did not target a woman, like Lake Herman Road, Blue Rock Springs, and Lake Berryessa. A woman is always present. Paul Stein was a taxi driver. He picked up somebody, his fare, from the Pinecrest Diner in San Francisco, and he drove him to a place near, was supposed to be Washington and Maple Street. Then he went over to Washington and Cherry Street.
Yep.
And the Zodiac shot him in the side of the head, one bullet by his right ear, and he was murdered. Then the Zodiac did something very, very different. He stole a piece of Paul Stein's shirt from the backside, the keys, the ID, the ID, and the wallet of Paul Stein.
Yep.
The Zodiac then walked away. Now, those are things that you see. Like if you Google the Zodiac Killer and you see that sketch, that drawing, that's from the witnesses after the Stein shooting.
Right.
At first, it was estimated that the suspect was around, was it late 30s to early 40s? But then what happened is they looked at that and the forensic artist attributed an age to the sketch, and that was around mid 20s to early 30s. You might even see this written on some Zodiac websites that the original witnesses said they thought the Zodiac Killer looked like he was 25 after the Stein shooting. That appears to be something different. It was the age attributed to the sketch. The witnesses are talking about some guy mid 30s to mid 40s, thereabouts.
Yep.
I don't recall the exact years, but it's in that ballpark.
Yeah.
So that actually leads me to believe the Zodiac Killer was just that, around mid-30s to mid-40s. And I wish I had a better way to get exactly the Zodiac's age, but I think thereabouts.
Do you think with that sketch that it comes even close to who the Zodiac was and how he looked like?
Yeah, it's
In your
possible.
in
I
your
have
own
my
personal
doubts.
in your own personal opinion?
I'm very 50-50 on that. I think it's possible, except for the fact that what if the witnesses were mistaken? What if they're just casting these little glimpses of the guy? Imagine
Yeah,
just looking at somebody for 5 seconds and you don't
yeah,
know that you're supposed to memorize all of their facial features. And we always have to bear in mind that if somebody's going to commit a murder like that, a murderer of a taxi driver, stealing his wallet, his keys, cutting off a piece of his shirt,
mm,
writing a letter saying, "Hi, I'm the murderer of this taxi driver. Here's a piece of his bloody shirt."
yeah,
Is he going to keep his appearance the same? Is he going to grow his hair out long, grow a beard so he doesn't look like that composite that's going around?
yeah,
I mean, it might not be that helpful, but I mean, I'm very 50-50 on that.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
but Roberto, I can tell you one thing.
yeah.
I do not like it when people are like, "Hey, I have a suspect." Oh yeah? Why? Because he looks like the Zodiac Killer composite sketch. It was my dad. It was my stepfather. It was my grandfather.
Yeah.
Ineffective method.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't I forget the name, but didn't somebody write a book and got really famous and claimed that it was their long lost dad or something like that along the way?
Gary Stewart, the author of the book, pardon?
Yep. No, sorry, you go on.
That was Gary Stewart. He was the author of the book, The Most Dangerous Animal of All. He had a co-writer named Susan Mustafa, and the publishing company wanted to milk that case so badly that they even have a second book that is like a companion piece. It's written by Michael Wachsel called The End of the Zodiac Killer Mystery or something like that.
Yeah,
Michael Wachsel even said they go hand in hand. You can read them in any order.
yeah.
It's more or less a pack of slimy lies. I don't even know if they wanted to connect their suspect, Earl Van Best Jr., to the Zodiac Killer mystery, or did they just see a marketing opportunity?
Mm,
But yes, that was Gary Stewart who did all that.
yeah. When it comes to, investigating all this and looking into true crime and everything, one can, get really caught up with it and can affect your mindset and your psychology, what's going on inside your head, in your mental state as well. How do you deal with it? Because I know you talk about it on a weekly basis. How do
Yeah.
you deal with all that to try and balance the real world and try to keep your mental state at a good level when looking into all this?
Firstly, never talk about true crime when you're at a cocktail party or something. And I'm a West Virginian. We don't have cocktail parties, maybe like barbecues and fried food parties out here in West Virginia.
Yeah,
But when you just have those conversations with people who aren't really that familiar with the true crime world, and you're talking about murders and people getting their bodies dismembered,
mm,
they don't want to hear it.
mm,
They're like, what? Or some people would be like, you're weird, dude. So that's a big way. I really keep my true crime uh just ideas separate and I put them out on the internet. I talk about them on forums. I
yeah,
talk about them with people that I learn about from the channel Black Box Online Radio. But even when I was at my day job and somebody started saying, "Oh yeah, I'm like really into serial killers. I like to know how serial killers think." I didn't say a word. I've been talking about that for years online, but I'm like, I don't want to just, explode into this world of like,
yeah,
oh yeah, these are the reasons why I think people murder their peers.
yeah,
Good water cooler talk.
yeah,
But with COVID, we do it from 6 feet away, so it's less threatening.
yeah,
And I also think that there's a very good side of learning about true crime.
yeah,
Because one thing that really encourages me is that not everyone is paying attention.
mm,
And true crime followers not only want to know what happened, not only want to know the shocking details, they also want to empathize with the victims.
yes,
They want to recognize that this was a person who lost their life. And also, how did it happen? Now, there was an article out in the New York Times that talked about how many women are actually fans of true crime because it reinforces the principles of security in society.
Yeah.
And I think her name is, I forget if it was Jack Vanek or Alexis Linkletter. They're the two hosts of the podcast, The First Degree, along with Billy Jensen. One of them said, I talk about true crime because it tells me what I need to do to feel safe in the world. So there is that
Wow.
aspect of it. It's not only that these people are getting murdered and let's hear some horror stories, and then you want to feel for the victims. It's also people are trying to be aware of the actual darkness and evil that's in the world. But another point about why I like to follow true crime and why I talk about it every day is because we need to learn everything. When you're talking about history, science, psychology, the way the brain functions, we can't only choose the warm and fuzzy parts.
Yeah.
We got to learn everything. This
Yeah.
is part of everything.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And yeah, and as you said, you get a real insight into what really goes on in the real world without, putting the shutters up and
Oh yeah,
pretending it's not
yeah,
real,
absolutely. And I just really found that once the more I watch serial killer documentaries, just they're everywhere all
Yeah.
the time, every state in America, in Australia too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I have an episode out about Mr. Cruel, Australia's darkest mystery, and like people are operating in like just all types of evil capacities.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a little bit saddened, but on the other hand, it's also like you're learning the truth. You know that whole thing, the truth will set you free,
Yeah.
just like that.
Yeah, exactly. If you could talk directly to the victims' families, what would you like to say to them?
The victim by victim, I would just like ask a family member, what was he like? What was she like? We talk a lot about his or her murder. Can you just tell me about what they were like as a person? What
Yeah.
did you do when you were kids? What were they planning on being when they were growing up? And I don't think that stuff gets mentioned enough. And it's even difficult to find online. Maybe you'll hear one thing. Sherry Joe Bates wanted to be a flight attendant and she also studied nursing, but you don't really get that whole humanizing picture from the true crime world. It really does turn into, all right, they were human, but they were still a murder victim, and the
Yeah,
murderer becomes the focus.
exactly. That's right. Yeah, it's all based on the murderer, which is a bit sad, but you can understand it because people are drawn to that fear and they
That's the mystery.
they're
Yeah.
like it's like a drug, like they're hooked on horror films and everything, and it's like
Oh, I
popping
love horror
popping
films.
popping candy and all that. Well, what's your favorite horror films? Now that you
I
mentioned that.
never have just one single favorite, but I was really into Halloween as a teenager, Michael Myers and all that. If you
Yep.
count Psycho from Alfred Hitchcock as a horror film, that was the first movie that ever truly scared me.
Yep.
Not just like something's moving at the camera, boo! No, no. But like actually gets inside your mind.
The psychological
Uh,
part of it.
Yeah, Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock, that one's up there.
Yeah.
And yesterday was Friday the 13th. Well, yesterday here in America, I didn't even know that. Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees, all that. Love it all.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Um, I've got a question here from one of our viewers who tunes in, and she asked, since the case was opened, why haven't we been able to crack open who this guy was with all the technology that we have today, everything? Why isn't it solved after all this time,
Sure.
especially with the ciphers and all that as well?
Sure. Easy answer. I don't know. But I'll give you something better than that.
Yeah.
I would expect it's because the authorities have certain pieces of information they don't want to reveal to the general public. They're holding back and they actually know a lot more. I also think that, well, let's just go through the basic reasons why the Zodiac Killer was never captured. Number one, he might already be dead. I mean, the last confirmed crime is in 1969. Even if you say the last confirmed crime is in 1986, he might be dead
Yeah.
or in jail, incarcerated for a different reason,
Yeah.
or perhaps he moved to a different country
Yeah.
and, he just continued his activities in a different place.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those possibilities do exist, but those are some that are frequently talked about. And even this, which I knew we'd get into at some point. Some people think that there were multiple killers in the Zodiac mystery. I said I talk a lot about the hoax theory, the Great Zodiac Killer hoax of 1986, which has been repackaged into a different book called The Myth of the Zodiac Killer. That's the idea that there never even was a Zodiac Killer. There was this guy who was writing letters taking credit for murders that he did not commit.
Right.
That's the basis of the Zodiac hoax theory.
Yep.
And Thomas Horan, who's the author of that series, the Great Zodiac Killer hoax, Myth of the Zodiac Killer, says that he's identified the letter writer as Harold K. Snook, Hal Snook. So he has, his theory, but it is not widely accepted. And in fact, a lot of other Zodiac researchers, everybody from Tom Voigt to Richard Grinnell to Mike Morford, absolutely reject the hoax theory.
Yep.
But I talk about it a lot. I don't endorse it. I'm not even convinced he's right about it.
Yep.
But as I said, curious.
What do you think, in your opinion, will be the key to unlocking the mystery, in your opinion?
Oh, absolutely, DNA.
DNA? Yep, it's going to come
I
down.
think that there'll be ways to analyze new pieces of DNA, maybe if they have like touch DNA from the corners of the letters or something, and they can match all the different letters together, and then they'd be like, all right, we have this DNA profile, go on the ancestry.com like websites, genealogical websites, then find a common relative, then slowly work back. And there might be different people. You might have two people involved.
Yeah.
But yeah, DNA will be very, very big in the future.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with you on that one. And the golden question, in your opinion, who do you think is the Zodiac Killer out of all the suspects that you've researched and studied? What's your own personal take on it?
I have two that I really lean toward very favorably. One of them is Donald Lee Cheney. He's the subject of the book Sighting In on the Zodiac Killer by Drew Beeson.
Yep.
And Drew hosts a show called The Zodcast. He's put forward a very strong case that Don Cheney was the Zodiac Killer. The other one is Hal Snook, the guy I was talking about from the hoax theory.
Yep.
And I'm not convinced that Hal Snook would have committed all of the crimes himself, but maybe he was a bigger player than other people are giving him credit for.
Yep.
Don Cheney was a mechanical engineer. He was a friend of Arthur Lee Allen, a gifted underachiever. He was someone who's mentioned frequently in the writings of Robert Graysmith.
Yep.
And then Hal Snook was a forensic scientist. He was a Napa County deputy. He owned a sporting goods store for a while. He taught at Napa County Junior College. He had many different jobs, but also someone who definitely had the intelligence to compose everything in the Zodiac Killer mystery.
Yep.
But an interesting thing is with those two guys, just by chance, Hal Snook has a birthday of April 21st. Don Cheney has a birthday of April 25th. I mean, as somebody once said, those guys are like throwing different size and rocks into the water and counting the ripples. Very, very similar psychology going on.
Wow.
From two people from vastly different backgrounds.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're the two suspects that you'd go with.
I think highly of them, yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. All right. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, Ned. And hopefully we can get you back when more information comes out. I'd love to get you back on the show and talk about it if it is solved in one day,
Okay, just shoot me a message. Yes, and anybody, I'm on Black Box Online Radio on YouTube, BlackBoxNed88 on Instagram, and I also have a different channel called Astro Psych 400 that talks about astrology, star signs. Talking about the Zodiac Killer got me curious about astrology.
Yep. Are you interested in other mysteries as well, like UFOs and all that?
On Amazon called Killer Novel Mystery, but yeah, it's novel fiction. What's that, Roberto?
Sorry, we just broke out there. I was just going to say, what other mysteries are you interested in? Sorry, can you hear me?
Now I can hear you, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, we just broke up there. What other mysteries are you interested in?
Right now, I'm doing a series on the Long Island serial killer. I think that is very fascinating. I've got a lot of episodes coming out. And this week on the channel, I'm going to be talking about the murder of Mary Pinch Meyer, who was possibly killed by the CIA in Washington, D.C. There's a podcast out called Murder on the Towpath, which is available on, what is it called? Luminary.
Yep.
And I'm going to be responding to that one. I talk a lot about the CIA and government conspiracy theories. I'm somewhat skeptical of them, but I do want to look into them all the same. And it really does seem like the CIA is doing a lot of evil in the world. And I talk about the New World Order a lot on my channel. I'm mostly trying to find out, what are these wacky conspiracy theorists saying that is true?
Yep.
And what are they saying that is false?
Yeah. We might have to get you back on, because we do talk about on this show, UFOs, the cabal and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'd love to have you back on and talk about all that stuff as well, and get your thoughts on it.
Anytime.
Yeah. I'll put your links to your YouTube channel on the links below, so people can find you there and study up on it. But again, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. And I wish you nothing but the best, and keep up the great work.
Okay, Roberto, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Nice to be here.
No worries. This is the Mystic Drop. I'm your host, Roberto Roya, and you've just been listening to Ned. Thank you so much, Ned.
Okay.